So before we start just mindlessly dunking on the pitch clock, let's see what someone who likes it has to say. Just Max Productions is a baseball YouTuber who is great and you should check out. He has a video about how the pitch clock is great for the game. So let's check it out. No, seriously, pause this video and watch his, and then come back if you want to. Sorry for giving you homework, so if you don't want to watch it, I can give you a summary of his points.
The pitch clock doesn't shorten the actual games, it just cuts out all that complete dead time that nobody wants to watch. I mean, really, who would want to waste 14 minutes of their time watching complete nonsense?
Yeah, in a 15-minute video that is pretty entertaining, like I said, he's a good YouTuber, he doesn't actually make really any points as to why the pitch clock is good. He kind of just goes over how long games, innings, and at-bats have gone on for. Now, I think that this is probably because, like most people, his brain just kind of assumes his opinions are self-explanatory and has trouble explaining them. Okay, I know this kind of sounds like an insult, but seriously, try to write down a cohesive explanation of some of your strongest opinions without just saying, this is this way because of fact everyone already knows. Pretty much the only argument I hear about the pitch clock is that you get to skip part of the game where nothing is happening. And this may seem correct, almost self-explanatory, but is watching a pitcher throw a pitch that's taken or fouled off more entertaining than just nothing? Well, to me it is, but that's only because of something I'll get into later on. Even with the pitch clock, the vast majority of baseball games will be dead time and pitchers throwing pitches where nothing happens. An unfortunate consequence of hitters getting better is that at-bats are getting longer. Baseball just isn't designed to be fast-paced like the NFL, NBA, MLS, or otherwise. The pitch clock may help push it in that direction, but baseball will never be fast. There were 333 qualified pitchers whose average pitch tempo... whose timer equiv in 2022 was faster than the 15 seconds the pitch clock will be set at with the bases empty. Basically, Baseball Savant already had a metric to time pitchers, that's pitch tempo, but timer equiv is the metric they have that's timed up with the pitch clock. There were 66 qualified pitchers who were slower than the 15 seconds the pitch clock will be set at with the bases empty. With runners on, it was 343 that were under the 20-second mark, and 56 above it. These numbers don't seem so alarming, but remember these are averages. Someone who averages 14.9 seconds is considered under the 15-second mark, but that would mean that many of their pitches are slower than 15 seconds. Baseball Savant has a metric that tells us the percentage of pitches a pitcher throws that are quote-unquote slow, longer than 30 seconds by tempo metric. The tempo metric adds about 6 seconds from the way the pitch clock will be timed, but 24 seconds is far slower than the pitch clock, both with the bases empty and with men on. Many of the pitchers whose average pitch tempo is in the 14-second range have a slow pitch percentage of 6% or higher. 20% to be exact. That means more than 6% of their pitches, remember these are 9 seconds slower than the pitch clock minimum, would not be counted. 6% of pitches automatically turned into balls is a bigger difference than you think. That was the difference between the lowest outside of zone percentage, because Baseball Savant doesn't have balls percentage and strikes percentage, I don't know why, and the 26th lowest. That was a lot of numbers I just threw out. But I threw them out there just so that we have some context and we're on the same page. People who think every pitcher will have to change for the pitch clock aren't arguing with people who think 99% of pitchers will barely ever have violations. The truth is somewhere in the middle. I'm now just going to list off some of the names whose average pitch time was slower than 15 seconds. Jonathan Loaisiga, Kenley Jansen, Aroldis Chapman, Emmanuel Clase, Josh Hader, Liam Hendriks, Shohei Ohtani, Corbin Burns. His pitch timing was 15.1 seconds. That's slower than 15. Shut up. Most of these are relievers, and ranking relievers coming into any one season is dumb. But if you had any of them being a top reliever this year, now you have to factor in that they're going to have to change not just to be faster on average than the pitch clock, but almost always faster. That requires a big adjustment. That kind of has to be done during games, whether they be team scrimmage, spring training, or otherwise. At least at the beginning of the year during spring training, these guys are going to have to make a conscious effort to be faster. And even if they get it down during spring training before baseball starts, that means they can't use that time to practice other things that they would normally be doing. Shohei Ohtani averaged 15.7 seconds to pitch last year. His tempo has slowly increased since his first year in 2018. Is this part of the reason for his rise into being one of the best starting pitchers in the game? Maybe not. Probably not. But if you're ranking players, or our front office trying to decide who to sign, you have to go through every player and determine if taking their time was part of their strategy, or if they have a long routine that they'll have to change. Whatever your division predictions are, just throw them out. Expect a number of great players to suck next year that's higher than usual. So, MLB posted an article on September 9th by Anthony Castrovince about the 2023 rule changes. And look, I don't want to blow him up here. Anthony, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but I just want to read you guys a passage from the article because it's just... Okay. This rule, which includes limits on throws to first base, has also increased stolen base attempts. With this rule in place in the minors this season, steal attempts per game have increased from 2.23 in 2019 at a 68% success rate to 2.83 in 2022 at a 77% success rate. You guys watch baseball, right? Like I don't have to explain why this is stupid. Now, the increase in stolen base attempts is obvious, and I could see the argument as to why that's good. It would be wrong because artificially adding exciting things like stolen base attempts to your game isn't actually exciting, but I could see the argument. The real problem I want to draw your attention to is the 9% increase in success rate. The way stolen bases work is that the more you steal, the harder it is to have a good success rate. As years have gone by, especially recently, MLB teams have intentionally gotten their players to steal less often in order to be successful at a higher rate. For all my non-baseball fans, stolen bases aren't just about reaction time and being fast, or the catcher having a strong arm and making a good throw. Stolen bases, especially those of third, are about timing up the pitcher and predicting what pitch is coming. Teams have timed metrics on how fast each pitcher is to the plate. They know how fast the catcher throws, and they know how fast their runners are, so they can basically calculate if a runner's going to be successful and have them run based on that. But players can also notice patterns in a pitcher's routine and know when they're going to the plate long before they've released the ball. A simple method when standing on second is to count the number of looks the pitcher does. You can do this all throughout the game, and sometimes, especially at lower levels, pitchers do the exact same thing every time. Some pitchers do one look to second base every single time and never change it up. Then you can start taking massive shuffles toward third base once they look away, because you know they're going to the plate. However, something that I think would be more likely at higher levels is if a pitcher is losing his control in a close game with runners on, and he's really focusing on making pitches and getting hitters out. He may fall into a rhythm and do the same thing every time that inning. And once you recognize that pattern, you can take off. Look, I tried to do my best to explain this as just some kid who doesn't really know what he's talking about, but I'll link to Matt Antonelli, who is a former MLB player and coach who actually knows what he's talking about. He's also a great YouTuber with tons of videos about baseball. With all this in mind, do you think, just maybe, that the fact that pitchers can only pick off a limited number of times, and I repeat, have to pitch after a certain amount of time, contributes to this increase in efficiency? If stolen bases just increase overall, I think that's a positive and a good thing. But if they increase in specific situations because of a rule change, I don't think that's a good thing. You will be able to tell when a base runner is about to steal off a pitcher, so will everyone in the stadium, and they won't be able to do anything about it. If you've already used your 2 pickoff moves, you cannot get used to waiting until the 20-second mark to pitch, because then the runner can just count to 20 or read the pitch clock in the stadium and take off at 19.5, and you won't be able to pick off because if he isn't running and you fail the pickoff move, then the runner gets second anyway. So this at bat, we have a batter throwing his bat because he thinks it's ball 4, but actually it isn't, and he has to go pick up his bat, and he can't get into the box in time, and oh sorry, that's strike 3. Anyone whose first thought when seeing this is, you shouldn't throw your bat until you know it's a ball, is a fan of the opposing team. That's a true statement. It's a bad habit that MLB players probably shouldn't do anyway. I don't want players to have to make a conscious effort after they draw a walk to not throw their bat because they are worried about the pitch clock. Basically, I don't like when players throw their bat before knowing the call, but I don't want not throwing your bat to be a skill MLB players have to work on to get less called strikes on them. Also, maybe more importantly, this just looks dumb. Even the umpire knows this violation is complete garbage. It's explicitly a violation in the rulebook, but I think you'll be hard-pressed to find people who blame the batter for wasting time here. I expect to see a lot of stuff like that in the next few seasons. Moments that are really stupid where almost everyone agrees the pitch clock screwed someone over. The pitch clock will speed up games, but the consequence is dumb, clunky moments like this. Baseball just wasn't designed for a clock. Under the pitch clock, there will be 1 timeout by the hitter allowed per plate appearance, which makes perfect sense. I'm sure there will not be a moment where a hitter gets something in his eye after he's already called a timeout, and then has to try to tell the umpire to call timeout of his own accord, and then he'll have to take a pitch. I'm sure that's definitely not going to happen. I'm sure there will be no moment where a player has already called time and then gets injured, but the umpire doesn't realize, and the player tries to tell the umpire to call time, but the umpire doesn't realize, and then the player gets a strike called on him, and then after the player leaves the game, we have to watch the manager argue with the umpire even though what happened is entirely within the rules. Pace of play is improving. This is a very minor thing and won't affect games at all, but baseball just isn't designed for certain rules, like the shift ban. Baseball just was not designed for a clock. Rules like the designated hitter, 3-batter minimum, or robot umpires. Please God, say we never get robot umpires. Take out parts of the game I love, but these rules function. Once you get used to them, they feel perfectly normal. You may love them or hate them, but at least they function. The pitch clock? Not really. If you asked me in 2016 what was great about baseball, I would have been able to list so many things. Like how we still, after 40 years, have pitchers hitting in the NL. We make people who have no idea what they're doing just go up there and give the opposition a free out. Teams literally don't care about teaching pitchers to hit, and we still make them do it. An example of a newer thing that I would have brought up is platooning. The fact that you could have a reliever on your team specifically for the job of getting 1 batter out per game. Or maybe the crazy shifts. The fact that you punish power guys for just pulling the ball, and then you have moments where players screw up and take the worst swing you've seen in your life and still get a hit. Where Brandon Belt goes 7 for 7 on bunts. This play by Anthony Rendon. All the stolen bases and taking third when no one is there shenanigans. But the greatest, most entertaining part of baseball, I will always say, is the chess game between pitcher and batter. The pitcher has to craft a puzzle, and the hitter has to solve it. People say that baseball is boring, people say it is slow and there's nothing going on. But if you just try to think along with the hitter or pitcher, you will realize how fast the game goes by. Even when I know exactly all the pitcher's pitches and hitter's weaknesses, the big gap in between pitches isn't enough time to think through everything the pitcher and hitter are thinking, let alone try to predict what's going to happen. People always complain about hitters getting out and adjusting their batting gloves or doing a little ritual, and every time someone says that, as if hitters are just wasting all that time for no reason, it makes me pull my hair out and want to the person who said it. I love trying to get inside the mind of a pitcher or hitter. Seeing little moments like this one between Ortiz and Verlander, being able to laugh at a bunch of idiots who think the Astros use buzzers and immediately tell you that they don't pay attention to the game, because I'm sure no one could have guessed Chapman would throw a slider when he literally couldn't throw a strike with his fastball and threw a slider right down the middle of the previous pitch, but because Altuve doesn't want his shirt ripped, he must have a buzzer because apparently baseball players are incapable of having irrational social anxieties. Sorry, justice for Altuve. Anyway. Watching a game close enough, you can know what's about to happen before it happens. When A-Rod predicts the pitch about to be thrown in the broadcast booth, do you think that's just some magical skill only great baseball players get? Do you think he got that from the steroids? No, he's just been doing it his entire career and got really good at it. For me, it's especially entertaining when you know a pitch is coming and an MLB player doesn't. Like, come on, Schwarber, he was obviously going curveball here. But I guess you got a home run, so I can't make fun of you. If you've never done this, I highly recommend it. Whenever your team's next game is, want to get mad at your offense sucking and feel justified? Just do this, it's really fun. Now, hitters and pitchers are going to be under a time limit. You have to worry about getting fully prepared for the next pitch in the amount of time. Fully thinking through everything is no longer the first and only priority between pitches. And that's a shame, I think. Of course, maybe in 10 years, the time limit will just be part of baseball and add to the fun of the chess game. But as for next year, I just don't like it. And that's unfortunate because I can think of no other possible ways to speed games up.